Text Expander from Smile is supporting this edition of MacVoices. Text Expander can help you be more productive in every single application on your Mac. Find out how at textexpander.com. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. And folks, I say this, as I've said so many times before, I say this over and over. It's way too long since we've talked to Rosemary Orchard, but that's just the nature of things because we're all busy and we're all in lockdown and all that. So, Rosemary, it's great to have you back. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting me back, Chuck. I'm excited to talk to you again. It's been a while, so it's great.
It has. It has. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And folks, in case you are wondering, we are having just a little bit of lag with Rosemary because apparently the internet is extra busy because they heard she was going to be here. And, naturally everybody jumped on. So, so Rosemary, a couple things I want to talk to you about, but probably the one that I think I'm the most excited about is you are the new owner and maintainer of WhenWorks.
Yeah, I am. And it's a really cool piece of software. And when I found out it was being shut down, I thought, it shouldn't be shut down. Like somebody else should take it over. And I worked something out and now I get to maintain this. And it turns out it's a challenge, but it's one I'm really enjoying. So yeah.
Well, I love the fact that you reached in and saved it from going the way of the dodo, but WhenWorks was one of those things that I think never really got as much public traction as it should have, and so I'm going to ask you to take us through WhenWorks and what it is and what it can do for people.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, the whole point of WhenWorks is it's a scheduling application. So instead of sending 20 messages or emails back and forth or having to make a phone call, you can send somebody a link and then they can look at that link and compare it to their availability and just pick a time and book it. And you can ask a bunch of questions as part of this. You could do a couple of other things as well, like set a specific location and have buffer time. So I need to have a 30-minute buffer before this kind of meeting, but this one only needs a 20-minute buffer. So you can send somebody a link to ask them when it works for them, and they book a time, and that's it. So you've cut out all of this back and forth, essentially. But the way it works compared to a lot of other applications is that it actually works with your on-device calendars. So instead of me needing you to sign into your iCloud account or your Google account and potentially me having access to more data than you would be willing to share, it can do everything entirely on your iPhone, which means that, your iPhone sends its availability up to the app, assuming that you've, run the app sometime within the last week or so. And then when something gets booked, it gets pushed back down into your local calendar. And that supports then all kinds of calendar types. So iCloud, Google, Exchange, that sort of thing. And that's what people really seem to love about it. And that's what I loved about it as well, the privacy aspect. And that's something I'd like to keep while I continue to go ahead and add some more options.
It is a little bit different than some of the other apps that I've used. Because, first of all, I think it's superior in that because I used it to book the appointment for us to do this. And what it gives me is, okay, now what kind of appointment is this? How long do you need? How are we going to connect?
Mm-hmm.
Skype, Zoom, whatever. It asks, and not in a burdensome way. It just, some things that we would have had to work out anyway are all right there. And I really like that.
Exactly. And those are questions that I chose to add to that kind of event. Because, if I'm just having a quick chat with somebody, then I don't need to know, how long do you need? Because they're just going to book it for like half an hour or so, and we'll just keep going if we're not finished chatting at the end. And I don't need to know, if I have to prepare for an audio or a video podcast for a chat. But for a podcast, I do know if I need to prepare so that I'm wearing something vaguely appropriate instead of, a Grateful Dead t-shirt with rips in it or something. I don't actually own one of those. But, it's nice to be able to set myself up for success by asking these questions. And that's something that is possible to do on every event that you have.
So go back to the integration with the calendar for a minute. One thing that I've always resisted services like this a little bit because I don't want to feed them my calendar for lots of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather just say, okay, here are these 4 times to pick from. And now, Rosemary, you pick the one that works for you. Is that something I can still do with WhenWorks?
Yeah, Garrett absolutely is. So essentially, what you can do is you can set availability windows. And this could be very specific time windows on days, or it could just be, any time between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. And in 90-minute intervals. But I need 30 minutes before this event starts. And then it will take that and then it will look in your calendar. And if there's something in your calendar at any of those times, then that just won't show up to be booked. But you can, of course, then just go through and look and, oh, okay, well, I have this event in my calendar. It's blocking that one. So if I remove that event from my calendar, then of course this time appears to be booked. So you can go ahead and just set very specific times or more general windows of time.
Okay, that's great. So it takes the best of all the apps that I've been using and gives me that capability.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know
Yeah.
what I received is a link for a web interface. Is this an app that runs on my Mac or on iOS, or do I do all the scheduling and all the work through the web interface?
So, as the person who owns the calendars, my job is to do everything on my iOS device. And that's only iOS at the moment, but I am working on a Mac application there as well, because I feel like a lot of people would really like to have this in the menu bar on the Mac. But that's not out yet. So, at the moment, you do it in the iOS interface and you create different kinds of events that you might want to invite people to. And then you can copy a link. And then that link, you can copy it, or you can actually, there's a really nicely formatted email inside. So you can just tap on that and it will open it in mail. So you can just fill in the information and send it to somebody. But inside of that email or that link is, a web interface. So the other person will then open this. And it means that whatever the person at the other end is using, be that an iPhone or an iPad or a Mac, or an Android, Windows, or Linux device, even if they're on maybe the dark side, they can still book a time with you because it's just done through the browser. So we didn't want to make, somebody that you're inviting to an event have to install an application. That doesn't make sense. It's not very user friendly. And if you're using this as a business, it's not going to look good on you either. And if you're using it as just an individual, then it's really not going to be fun for your friends. Like, I have to download an app to book a time with you. What? Really? So it's only you who is the person creating the invitations that installs the app.
Okay. So let's say I wish I did, but I don't have an assistant that could book things and times for me. How would you go about handling something like that? Would they sign in as me on their iPhone?
Well, if they were to do that, they would need access to your calendars on their iPhone as well, because otherwise, then they're not going to be able to actually manage and set the availability and block it. That said, if you had an assistant, then what you could do is you could install this on your phone so that it has the availability and it puts the bookings into your calendar. And they could install it on their phone as well. But instead, granted access to the calendars, you need to do that in order for the app to work, but then uncheck sending all of the calendars to the server, because I don't actually have the app send all of the details of the calendar, because I don't want to know that you have a dentist appointment at 10 o'clock in the morning and you're taking the dog to the groomers at 3. Like, that's information that to me is completely irrelevant and I don't want it and I don't care about it. All I care about is that you're busy at 10 a.m. till 11 a.m. and 3 to 4:30. And so that's what gets sent to the servers from your calendar. So your assistant would just not send any of their calendars to the server, but that would then allow them, if they're signed into your account, to access your invitations and manage those. And so they can copy those links and send them to somebody else.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense. Okay, so
yeah. I am working on actually adding a full web interface where you won't need to actually manage everything on your phone. You'll be able to manage the invitations on the website so that an assistant would just be able to sign in, on their Mac or Windows machine or whatever in the browser. But that's not ready yet. It's something that I'm still in the very early testing stages of, and I'm only testing it myself right now because I'm not very happy with how it works. It needs a little bit more polish before anybody else can have a go at it.
Polish is an interesting word, because I feel like this is a very polished application. It's very clean. Again, compared to some services that I've used or am using, there are ads flashing all over the place and, trying to upsell you. And this just always is super, super clean and simple to understand.
Well, that's the whole point, because why, I mean, especially for the people who are paying for the service now, I should mention, of course, if it's you want to book just a very few short number of events a month, if you want to book 5 events a month, it's completely free. And I'm not going to charge you to use it because, if you want to use it for free, by all means, go ahead, no skin off my back. And then if you want more than 5 events a month, it's $5 a month, which I feel is a fair price compared to the other options out there as well. But I figure either you're using the service to try it out on a low scale, and there's a possibility that you might be willing to pay in the future, or you're paying me. Both of those would not happen if I'm putting flashing ads in your face, because you want a good user experience. And the other thing is when somebody goes to book an event with you, if there are ads on that page, that would be a really bad experience for them as well. So there are just no ads in the service, because to me, it doesn't make any sense. It would be a bad customer experience.
And $5 a month is a very fair price, again, compared to some of the other services, but also just compared to the way that you would use this. Because if you're somebody who doesn't live by your calendar, then that's probably too much. And maybe they'll play with the 5 events per month. But if you live by your calendar, boy, this is the way to do it. It just is.
Yeah. For me, I find it offers a lot of advantages over things like the Exchange scheduling feature as well, where in Exchange, if your company is using Exchange, then usually you can see somebody else's availability. But the problem with this for me is they can see my availability that I'm free from 4 till 5. And so they book me in for like an ultra planning session at 4 p.m. in the afternoon. And it's like at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, like I'm really not going to be very awake. And as much as, I understand we need to get the planning done, I would really much rather limit this to the morning. And that's why I've been sending people WhenWorks links and just saying, hey, can you pick a time that works? And like, in Exchange, it says you're free at 4. And I'm like, I can't do this kind of meeting at 4. Please pick a time from WhenWorks. It's much better for me.
Yeah. And that's one of the objections I have to the Outlook server, because I find myself having to block out times just for that very reason. I don't want to do it. I'm not going to be effective, or there's another reason I don't want to do it at that particular time. And yet the calendar says I'm free. I'd much rather, and that's why I asked you earlier about, can I take these 4 times that really suit me to do this particular event where I can be focused, instead of trying to squeeze it in between this meeting and that conference call.
Exactly. Yes. And that's what I feel is great, because especially with the buffer times, if you say that you need a minimum of, say, 30 minutes to prepare for something, or you need a 30-minute wind down after something, like after recording this with you, I have a 30-minute break planned, because talking to you is very exciting. And I feel like I should probably go and eat some chocolate afterwards to calm down. And so, being able to put that in there as well means that even if, for example, they only want to book you for half an hour, and you've got half an hour between this meeting and this conference call, because you've got that 30-minute buffer attached, that 30-minute window does not show as available to them, because you actually need an hour for that kind of appointment. As far as they're concerned, it's only 30 minutes, but from your side of things, you need an hour so that you can get set up and everything. And I feel that makes it a lot easier for you as well, because you don't have to add fake appointments to your calendars to block things out that you don't need to.
That's off on a tangent here. That's a really interesting way to look at meetings. And I don't think that most people do. I feel like there's so little preparation for so many meetings that I attend. And you're right. If they would just build in a buffer or spend a little time, the meeting could probably either be shorter or definitely be more effective.
Yeah. And I feel the same way. A lot of people don't realize that they need prep time for things, or follow-up time for things after a meeting, because there are some people where after a meeting you just can't talk to them for 30 minutes because they're so busy making notes and capturing everything that's come up and sorting things out. And I long to be that kind of person, and I hope at some point in the future I will be that kind of person. But in the meantime, I've still got these buffers on either side, so that nothing's going to make me late to it, and this is not going to make me late to something else. And so that I can actually do that preparation and take notes of those few action items that hopefully have not actually come my way, but may possibly be coming my way in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there is an iOS app now, which is what WhenWorks really is. There's a Mac app in development. There's a web app in development.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So part of the web app already exists, and that's where somebody would go to book an event with you or with me. And that's also where you can do a few things like remove devices from your account and stuff like that at the moment. But at the moment, that's all it is. The side of the web app that's coming will be appointment management or invitation management, actually, to be slightly more precise.
I'm delighted that you took this over, because it, like we said when we started, it was in danger, and it also was not widely known. And now I feel like it's got a chance of in fact, with you in charge, it's pretty much assured that it will continue to go forth and grow and improve and do even more things that I didn't know I wanted to do with my appointments until you tell me that I can do them.
Well, I'm hoping that it will see an improvement. I'm working on a few new things. I am considering at some point potentially rewriting the iOS app in SwiftUI just to make it a little bit faster and a little bit, cleaner. But as you said, it's already a very fast and clean application, so I don't feel that needs to go on my urgent priorities list just yet. And I'd rather get a Mac app and a web app out there for people so that they can use the app even more the way they want to.
So it's $5 a month. Is that an annual subscription, or do you pay month by month?
So there's a monthly subscription of $5 a month. So if you just need it rarely for more than 5 appointments, then you could just hop in and subscribe for 1 month. And that's all managed through Apple. I don't get any credit card information or anything. And there's also a $50 a year plan as well, where you can get 2 months free essentially if you subscribe for the year. And again, managed through Apple. And that's all inside of the iOS app.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. I think you've thought of everything.
Well, I hope that people actually get use of it. That's what I'm hoping for. And I'm pleased to say that when I turned the annual subscriptions on, there were a lot of signups and people seem very, very happy with the service. And we're currently rolling out push notifications to iOS devices as well, so that when somebody books it, as well as getting an email to your inbox, which of course is something that might be managed by an assistant, you'll get a push notification to your device, so that you can see it immediately and tap on it and view the details.
Smile and TextExpander are sponsoring this edition of MacVoices. Do you want to do something quick and easy to improve your productivity? Want something that is bulletproof that will improve the quality of your work? Are you looking for a utility that can integrate with just about any program on your Mac to make it better? If so, you're looking for TextExpander from Smile. TextExpander works pretty much everywhere on the Mac, inside just about any program. Desktop publishing, email, web publishing, browsers, task management applications, chat applications, the list goes on and on. Because all of those require text entry, and TextExpander helps you enter text quickly and accurately. Have a word, phrase, paragraph, or page that you need inserted regularly? TextExpander does it with a few keystrokes. Have a word that you misspell frequently? TextExpander can help you fix that so that it never happens again. Want to standardize wording to customer inquiries across your entire team? TextExpander is the answer. With almost no learning curve and massive payback on the time invested, you should be using TextExpander. Visit TextExpander.com right now, download a free trial, and find out what so many of the productivity experts already know. TextExpander from Smile, the makers of world-class software. Thanks to Smile for being the longest-running sponsor of MacVoices. So that's the first thing we wanted to talk about. And again, congratulations. Oh, excuse me. I want to make sure we hit the domains because we talked about that there was a little bit of a change with the domain.
Yes. So the alt domain, but it still works, is still around. But the main domain, if you want to find the app, is WhenWorks.app. If you previously used WhenWorks at when.works, that's still working. Don't worry, it's not going anywhere. I'm keeping it as long as I can. But if you want to find out more, go to WhenWorks.app.
Okay, so something a little more akin with the way modern developers promote their applications.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. So, folks, right now, well, no, not right now. After the show, go to WhenWorks.app, check this out. Give it a shot for the 5 events for a month and see how well it works for you. And if it works, sign up. Not only will you help out Rosemary, but you'll help out a lot of other people who love this app. And I know it's one that I intend to start using now, that I know it's going to be around and is going to be more reliable. And with some of the enhancements, it's made it much more appealing to me as well. Rosemary, we have never talked about a book that you wrote. It's now got a little bit of age to it, but it's not that old. And I want to make sure I get the title right. It's Build Your OmniFocus Workflow.
Yeah. So this is a book I wrote a couple of years ago with a friend of mine, Ryan Dotson, and it's all about building a workflow for OmniFocus with the focus on OmniFocus 3, which of course is the current release of OmniFocus. They're currently on 3.8, but fortunately, none of the things that we wrote about in the book have changed completely and gone away. There are a few things that I'm looking to add in an update to the book in the not too distant future. But of course, I'm focusing on WhenWorks first right now because workflows themselves probably shouldn't change that much, other than maybe getting a few enhancements.
So we've talked to a lot of people about OmniFocus, and OmniFocus strikes me as one of those apps that you can approach in so many different ways to try to make it work for you. How would you describe the way you approach OmniFocus?
Well, OmniFocus is partially a second brain to me. I don't think about what I should be doing by which day or, what items need to be completed inside of a certain project. I just put it in OmniFocus, and then OmniFocus tells me what I need to do next, which is great because essentially I've outsourced a lot of my decision making in many cases because it's like, this is the first available thing that you need to do in this project to move it along. Great. Okay, perfect. So next up on my WhenWorks list is a database migration, which sounds scary, but isn't, and things like that. It's great because for me, it works like that. But for other people, it's literally just a to-do management piece of software where they put in, oranges in their grocery list, and that's okay. And everybody needs to decide what they need for a piece of software. And the point of the book is to help people figure out what they should be doing inside of it, along, of course, with some guiding principles and references to Getting Things Done by David Allen, because Ryan and I are both fans and follow that fairly faithfully.
So what would you suggest that people do? I mean, obviously, at the bottom line, they have to make it work the way they want it to work. But how do you get them started?
Well, I mean, I would get started by putting everything in the inbox, and then looking and seeing what appropriate categorizations for things there are. So, of course, OmniFocus has projects and tags, and these are two separate things. And a task can be inside of one project, but a task can have many tags. So say, for example, I was waiting on an email from you. I could put waiting on email from a Chuck Joyner in my inbox. But then inside of the tags, I would probably put waiting because it's something I'm waiting on. So that means I can't do anything other than perhaps send you a follow-up email. And I could also put Chuck so that then I can click on my Chuck tag and I can see everything to do with Chuck. Or I could potentially put MacVoices as a tag and see everything related to MacVoices inside of my OmniFocus. So I would start by putting things in your inbox and figuring out, okay, do I have projects here? Some of these tasks maybe are actually projects and I should put other things inside of them. And so you can convert them to projects and that's easy to do, or you could just add a project and then adding some tags. I would suggest projects first rather than tags because tags, you can very quickly end up with a large number of them and it can get a little bit overwhelming. But a project ideally should have a goal. And that's something you can work on. Though I will admit, I do keep my groceries inside of OmniFocus, and grocery shopping is not necessarily a goal, but staying alive is. So I'll let it slide.
Okay, so the other objection I hear, and sometimes it's come out of my own mouth, is that programs like OmniFocus, and I'm not picking on OmniFocus because there are a lot of these out there. At some point, the amount of effort it takes me to put all the information in, I start to question the cost benefit of that. Because to make it, if it goes in, it's great, and you can click this and click that and do the cross references and all. But there is a time and effort cost in putting all this information in. How do you respond to that?
Well, at some point, yes. In some cases, putting Brush the cat into your task management may feel like it takes longer than it takes to actually find the cat, pin it down, and give it a good grooming that it needs. And if the cat protests, then of course this will probably take longer than adding the task to your task management. But it depends on what you really need and what you're getting out of the task management as a whole. Because sometimes tasks do feel like they take a little bit longer to put in there because you need to think about them. But that means that you need to think about the task and possibly add some more tasks and come up with some more items. And for me, the benefit of the task management system as a whole, and for me, that's an OmniFocus. For other people, it might be in something else like things or reminders or whatever. But the benefit of this is it's not one task that I'm looking at. It's the big picture. It's my goals. Here are my goals for the next 5 years, and these are broken down then into projects which will help me achieve those 5-year goals. And those projects are broken down into tasks. So grooming the cat will have to come after adopting a cat. But adopting a cat is part of, having a happy lifestyle and having a way to de-stress, and also offering a home to a fur friend in need. So there are multiple goals that one task is achieving. And it's nice to be able to look in my task manager and just go back a couple of levels and actually see that. Because, for me, the whole point of this is to be successful overall, not just in one particular thing, like buying carrots at the supermarket. It's, becoming a better cook. And that's why all of my things end up inside of my task management system.
Yep, you did it again too. You gave me a different perspective on task management than I think anybody's given us before. The idea that almost start with the big goals and work your way backwards, as opposed to trying to start with that little goal and then fit it into a larger project.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what you need. But for me, that's really what works, because, buying carrots feels like a really silly task to have in like a task management system, which is also tasks like migrate database system for WhenWorks. Those are two completely different, weighty subjects. If I forget carrots, well, I have dinner without carrots. If I forget to migrate the database, then everybody's account stops working. That will be a big consequence versus a very little consequence. But at the same time, both of these are part of bigger goals, becoming a better cook and making WhenWorks available to everybody. And that's why I like the goal approach. Because it really feels like every task is like taking me there. Even if that individual task doesn't feel like it does a lot, being able to just look up inside of my task manager and go, yeah, this is progressing me here is fun.
I would love to look at your task manager. I can only imagine what someone with the number of projects that you have going, the number of podcasts and everything else, it has to be complex to say the least.
It is, but at the same time, it's not too crazy. I will admit, I have my fair share of automation, adding stuff into my task manager automatically. So, for example, new episodes of nested folders and automators will automatically get projects added at specific points in the future without me really thinking about it, because, I need those to appear, but every one is an individual project. I don't have a recurring project for these things. And yeah, there's a lot going on, but at the same time, I really like being able to look in there and know this is the sum of all the things that I need to do, unless I miss something. And of course, everybody misses things. And, I have great thoughts and then they fly out of my head 30 seconds later before I get a chance to write them down. But it's okay, because they usually come back, because I don't need to be thinking about the 1,206 other items that are inside of OmniFocus right now. So
I have a friend who has a bad habit, and I've known her for a long time, and she has a bad habit of looking at a project, and just feeling like she wants to melt down because there's just so much to do, instead of taking it a little bit at a time. And I'm listening to you talk about, starting with the big goals and then work backwards. I'm wondering, for somebody like her, do you think it's better to start with the little goals and then aggregate them up? Or should she start with that thing that's making her melt down and then try to break it down into different tasks?
Well, I think she should assess why it's making her meltdown. Is it the sheer number of things to do to get to that point? Or is it the fact that, she doesn't really know what that point is? Because there are two potentially different problems there. For most people, I would say if you're getting overwhelmed by the number of items in a project, then what you need to do instead is create a filter or perspective, which just shows you the first task to do in this project. So there might be 300 action items to do in a project, but it only shows you the first one. And you check that off, And and then you go down to your next project and you check the next one off of that, and so on. And then when you refresh things, then it comes up with the next available action. So it might feel like a never-ending list, but only seeing one item at a time can be really helpful. Like they put blinkers on horses to help them not get freaked out by cars going past. Sometimes you need to put blinkers on you for your task management so that you don't get overwhelmed by all of the other tasks that are there waiting to be done. Because right now you can only do one thing at a time. So you just need to take that first one and get it done.
That's a really good analogy. Not one I would have come up with, but that's a really, really good analogy. Interesting.
Well, I drove past some horses today, and I was pleased to see they had blinkers on and they didn't get freaked out by a car overtaking them. And I should know, they go past very slowly because I didn't want to freak out the horse, but it had blinkers on, which helped so that it didn't get freaked out by me.
So practical experience here.
Just a little.
So right now, I better ask you to walk through all the podcasts and everything you do, because there's so many different things. Your name pops up so many different places. So walk us through everything that's going on with you.
Well, I'm co-hosting Automators. That's the Automators podcast on Relay.fm. And I'm also co-hosting Nested Folders, a productivity podcast, which is at nestedfolderspodcast.com. But in addition to this, I've been producing some screencasts over at Screencasts Online for Don McAllister and the rest of the team there, which I'm really enjoying. And I also do writing over at the Suite Setup at the moment, which is great fun. So I think that's the list of things that I'm doing right now.
I especially want to call out one particular screencast you did, to you and Don, to your credit. You were giving it away free, and that was one to get folks up and running on Zoom. I took that screencast and referred a lot of people to it, because it's like, okay, this, and a lot of them were PC users, and they freaked out a little bit when it clearly is a Mac oriented podcast. I said, no, don't worry about it, because it's all on the web. And then I got back these amazing thank yous for finding that, because so many people at that stage were, they needed to be on Zoom, they needed to get on, they were getting Zoom invitations, and yet they had never used it before. And so that was a spectacular way to just walk you through getting up and running, and the basics of attending and participating in a screencast. So thank you, and thank you to Don for that as well.
Yeah, well, it started out as a tip show, and then I said, I can't cover this in 15 minutes. This is not going to happen. Let's go, make it a full-length show and add the chapter markers. So if people don't want to find out about, like custom backgrounds and things like that, then they don't need to. They can just skip that and go to the next section, which is relevant for them. But I felt that it was a really important one to do, and the rest of the team agreed. So yeah, we ended up doing that, and I'm really glad that people enjoyed it, because it can be difficult to wrap your head around new software when everything else in your life is changing at the same time as well. So many people being sent home to work from home, and they're not used to that. They don't have the equipment they're used to, and now they have all of this new software to work with. It's a hard job. Yeah.
Well, and up to that point, I know my personal experience had been, we were trying to use Zoom for some meetings, and people were afraid to turn the cameras on. I mean, I don't know what it is about a camera that scares people, but and once the COVID-19 situation hit, and you were having to do business online, then okay, you pretty much have to turn the camera on. You can no longer hide behind the I'll just call in thing, and so teaching people how to get the most out of that was absolutely spectacular. So thank you.
It also helps that the virtual backgrounds can really hide a messy bedroom. Now, I should note that this is not a messy bedroom behind me. This is neat and tidy. I just blurred it so that people aren't getting distracted by everything. But, being able to do things like blur your background or put a virtual background at the Golden Gate Bridge there can really, lower the tension level when it comes to, well, my house isn't perfectly tidy because life has gone upside down right now. So.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of tech. I think it's all good.
Yeah, that's my working space back here. This is my recording space, and yeah, there's a fair amount going on back there. But I've said this on the show before. The virtual background thing has fascinated me. I was never a big proponent of those, but now all of a sudden people are using them as a form of self-expression, and they seem to enjoy their background. It's almost a badge of honor of some kind to show your favorite beach or your favorite sports team or something. And it's a great icebreaker too for a lot of conversations.
Absolutely. Yes, it really is. And there are some great backgrounds out there that you can download. I found a bundle of Star Trek backgrounds the other day, and I've been having a little bit of fun with those in some meetings at work. And some people don't get it, it just flies by. And then other people, you can see that they look at me and then they look at the background, they look back, and they just do like the nod of, yeah, I've spotted what you've done there. That's cool. It's building a little bit of extra rapport, which I feel we all need in this kind of time.
Agreed. Well, folks, other than going to WhenWorks.app, where can folks find you if they want to communicate with you, ask questions, or whatever?
I think the best place to go is RosemaryOrchard.com. That has links to everything I do, and also to find me on social media or contact me via my website. So it's all there, RosemaryOrchard.com.
Great. Rosemary, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking over WhenWorks. I'm looking forward to getting more familiar with it again. And we'll get you back on here and see what your next project is, because I'm sure that it's somewhere on your OmniFocus to-do list.
It is, but at the moment, I think I've got a few things to focus on while I still have my regular job. So let's see what happens.
Understood. Thanks so much again. Great to see you.
Thanks.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. No kidding, WhenWorks.app. Check it out. I think it may solve some scheduling problems. And it's another one of those tools that right now, as it seems like the world has changed or is changing, you may find extra beneficial if you're working from home, or even if you end up having to go back to the office. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.